And welcome into PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com with me. PressBoxOnline.com. With me is Bill Ordine, who used to be our gambling writer at PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com, now with Gambling.com, and we'll talk about that. And down on the other part of your screen is Patrick Evans of Legal Sports Report. Gentlemen, you both have been covering this up and down saga of Maryland trying to implement its legalized sports betting program. I'll start with you, Bill, because our audience is probably a little bit more familiar with you than Patrick, but we're going to get them familiar with Patrick. Where do you think after today's SWARC meeting we are in this process, which again, it's been a year since this was voted by the public, and about 65% of the people wanted this sports betting, and it has yet to take a first bet in Maryland.
Well, you asked where are we, and
yeah,
we are at a place where in a couple of more weeks, the Sports Wagering Application Review Commission expects to get feedback that it asked for today from applicants, operators, sports gambling operators, regarding ownership. That was a specific question that's being sent out to the operators. And there's a timeline, or there will be a timeline established when those operators need to get back with an answer. And then beyond that, for the Sports Wagering Application Review Commission to review those answers and then to move on from there. And it wasn't quite, the next time these guys are supposed to meet are November the 18th. It's not really clear what they intend to do on November the 18th.
Patrick, you cover this along with the whole, just like Bill does now. You've got the whole gambling beat, this legalized sports betting and casino betting is your territory, your turf that you're covering. Was it necessary at every state level? Is a committee like SWARC, mandated to do what this committee has done?
So I haven't been in the weeds of the legislative stuff for too long. I started at Legal Sports Report in January, but I did have the privilege this year of tracking 3 big states. Okay. Maryland being one of them, but Louisiana and Arizona as well. And for those, the other 2 no, and the other 2 have now launched. At least Louisiana is doing on a similar track of launching retail first, and online should be out by January 1st or so. And this is the first I've seen this extra legislative created committee that is just seemingly an extra layer.
An extra layer of delay.
Yeah, exactly. Like. And it's interesting that, they passed on the 17 named entities for retail sports books to the Maryland Gaming and Lottery Control Committee. There's so many layers in this state that kind of, and then now they're back, and it's a whole kind of hula hoop jumping around thing.
Bill, let me pull the thread from my question to Patrick. Is this becoming embarrassing to the industry as a whole? Not just, is it embarrassing for Larry Hogan? Is it embarrassing for anybody in Maryland? Is this an embarrassment the way the state Maryland has handled this? Or is this sort of par for the course that there was going to be some kind of delay built in?
Well, par for the course is kind of a loaded expression, and it applies differently to different states. But in terms of the word embarrassment, the word that you use, I have seen other people within the gaming industry use that specific word regarding the pace of getting sports wagering going in Maryland, particularly at the retail level. I mean, we're not even talking about the online level. So other folks have looked at the Maryland situation with some and they're bewildered by it as to why it has turned out to be as clunky as it has been. But to answer, your prior question, a commission like this, but the SWARC, what we call around here the SWARC, I don't believe exists in any other state.
Leave it to Maryland to invent the SWARC committee. So what is, Patrick, what is your understanding of what the SWARC committee, the Wagering and Review Board, what is their sole purpose? What is their mandate?
From my understanding, the sole purpose was to kind of award the competitive bid licenses, which is why at their first meeting in August, they just said, you know what, pass on these 17 retail sports books or casinos and off-track betting facilities that want a retail sports book. And presumably eventually those same guys get online sports books as well. And so they just passed them on. So I said, oh, that seems like that's what they should have done, because they didn't really have to do anything, because those were already essentially awarded licenses. But then now as you get further on, and now they want extra information about these casinos that are already licensed by the MLGCA.
Right.
I'm kind of at a loss now too of what this extra added layer is doing at the moment, because the other thing they're trying to figure out is how to award those extra 30 retail licenses and up to 60 mobile licenses, and are they going to tie those together and all that stuff. And I guess given their legislatively created purpose, I guess that makes sense. But the retail delay is kind of bewildering to me at this point.
Bill, this retail delay, I understand from their point of view, the SWARC committee, they don't want to give a competitive advantage to the people that are already in the gaming business. That sounds like the weirdest kind of catch-22 of all time. I mean, these are the experienced people that are licensed in the state of Maryland to already operate gaming concern. What is the problem with letting them start and then award these other licenses?
Well, there's a lot of angles to, it's like a 12-sided dice, to tell you the truth. In terms of the bona fides of the current applicants, there really seems to be no question about that. I mean, these are guys men and women, who have passed through the filter for a casino license. That's a pretty fine filter. However, the SWARC's mission, and the SWARC was mentioned, I believe, in the very first draft of sports wagering legislation that was introduced by Speaker of the House of Delegates, Adrian Jones. That entity was mentioned in the very first draft of legislation. And its task actually is to implement the overarching notion that there needs to be participation by minority and women-owned businesses in the sports wagering industry in Maryland.
And is this out of response to the fact that when marijuana was legalized, that women and minorities never got a piece of the ownership pie in those? Is that where this came from?
Well, after sitting through a bunch of legislative hearings and workshops, I can tell you that frequently advocates on behalf of this principle frequently brought up what had happened in the marijuana legislation here in Maryland, and that minority businesses initially were not included. And they did not want to see that replicated when it came to sports wagering.
Patrick, have you heard that as well? Because you're writing for more national, well, Bill is now, he's with an international concern with gambling.com, but you're not positioned here in the state of Maryland. Had you heard that as what the marching orders were for SWARC and why they were given those marching orders because of a previous seeming injustice in the marijuana licenses?
Yeah, earlier this spring when it was going through the legislative process, I talked to multiple senators and representatives who said the same thing. And yeah, it's everything and even now that's why they're in these closed long. I mean, today's was, I think, 2 hours, right, of a closed session trying to discuss
2 hours.
whatever, and we don't hear what's going on in there, but I assume it's
what
all.
what do you two guys do during those 2 hours? You're trying to write about this and they're not giving you anything.
It's on in the background, and I'm doing other things, and then when it pops up, I revert my attention.
I make coffee and get it finished.
So that is their main mission. And again, I just don't understand where these 17 named, and I guess that's why they're asking for more ownership. But if they're named in the legislation, I think that is an extra step that the legislators who also created this committee had already taken into account, I would think. I'm not entirely sure.
I'm just curious, Bill, you've been around the block a good while with this topic, and you've watched these other states come into gaming fruition, sports betting fruition. Are minorities and female-led businesses, are they positioned in other states like New Jersey and Delaware and wherever, at Nevada? I mean, is that a big mission in those states to have that be part of this?
I don't know how, whether or not I have a 30,000 foot view of this really, but from my observation, the only a woman or a woman-owned business I can think of in the sports wagering business is in Tennessee. And she, her and her business were pretty unique at that moment. And I know of really no other business that would, check off those boxes other than that one. So if there is an observation / criticism that minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses have not been participating in sports wagering, I think that is a valid observation. So I only know of the one in Tennessee. Patrick may know of others.
Patrick, you know of any others?
I don't. And I guess that is why this is, I don't envy the task of this committee, because it's got to be hard to kind of figure out how to do this.
Well, today's meeting, the SWARC meeting, by the way, to catch people up if they're just tuning into this Zoom, the SWARC meeting today, I understand 2 hours of it were behind closed doors. And at the end, the commissioner or the chairman of the SWARC committee, Thomas Brandt, is that his name? Thomas Brandt,
yep,
said something like, when at our next meeting, we won't have as many soliloquies. So I guess there was a lot of speechifying going on today, Bill.
I mean, one could make that inference, I suppose. I mean, they were in there for, Patrick sat through it like I did. I mean, I think the thing started, it was supposed to start at 10:30, right, Patrick?
Yep.
And I think it ended at about maybe 2.5 hours later.
It was at 1 because one of the commissioners had to get out to do something else.
At 1 o'clock.
Probably had to shop. He probably had to go shopping for the groceries.
And 2 hours and 20 minutes of it were a blank screen.
Yeah.
But and they were in there with attorneys. They have hired a law firm, I believe, from Chicago, to advise them. This is a law firm that has extensive experience in sports gaming law, and they got a quote unquote a written report or a written legal opinion from that outfit, and Lord knows how long that took. And one supposes that there was input from members of the commission. And was there speechifying? I guess there was. We do know this, that by the time they came out of it, they were pretty close to not having a quorum to continue to do official business. At one time, Tom Brandt said, do we have a quorum? Somebody said, well, we got 4 people here or something. So it was a real head shaker, frankly.
Well, it has been a head shaker. Again, the bill that passed through legislation in last November's election was voted on by approximately 65% of the voters in the state want this implemented. At what point do the voters get a say in this again? They didn't necessarily vote on this, based on the fact that we get minority ownership, female-led ownership. They want to be able to go down to the corner at their sports book and bet on the Ravens game this Sunday, and they can't do that in the state of Maryland.
Well, you were asking at what point do they get a say?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I can remember in one of his first tweets, Governor Larry Hogan gave out the email address of the SWARC. I think.
Yeah, he did.
Do you have that email address
that's an opportunity to have a say.
Do you have that email address on you, Bill?
I do not.
Okay.
It's on his Twitter thread or his Twitter feed. So
on Governor Hogan's Twitter thread. All right.
And I read an article recently that had him saying, the executive committee or the executive branch, the control agency, they've done their part. SWORC needs to do theirs. And I think, I had senators telling me that they wanted to be up by World Series, which is now over.
Right.
And they had the opportunity to do that. And it sounds like November 18th, they do want to get these 5 casinos that are through the process live.
Do you have that same, Bill, do you have that same sense that November 18th is the day that the 5 existing casino licenses in the state will get approved for the sports betting at the brick and mortar locations?
I'm a reporter. I'm not a swami.
All I'm saying is it sounded like in their limited comments at the end of the meeting today that that's what they're aiming for, but who knows at this point? It could have been today. It could have been the meeting they posted or canceled a couple weeks ago. So who knows if it's going to be in 2 weeks or not? But
it's hard. It really is hard telling. But I mean, I think Patrick's inference is a reasonable inference that they'll try and get this done. Because listening to Tom Brandt today, I don't think I am being too interpretive to say that there was impatience on the part of Tom Brandt.
Okay.
When he says, I've led a lot of meetings and this is a difficult process. I don't think I'm being interpretive as to how the guy feels about things.
And he's a Governor Hogan appointee, right?
He is.
We want to make it clear that the SWARC committee, which consists of 9 members, 3 have been selected by the governor, 3 by the House of Delegates, and 3 by the state Senate. Correct, Bill?
Yep, all that
okay.
Right.
What do you guys, I don't know how close you are to talking to people that are part of management or ownership of these 5 licenses in the state of Maryland. What do you think their stance is right now? Do you think they're pretty ticked off about this, or are they just sort of saying, is it they're just letting it roll off water off a duck's back or something?
No, I've talked to a few. My sense of it is that there is a sense of impatience, and I think I'm giving the understatement here. But just look at the evidence. Maryland Live has had a sports book / sports bar built now for several months. I mean, what do you think they didn't spend those millions of dollars on that, just to serve beers on a Sunday.
Yeah, they were probably ready to go right at mid-August, ready for the football season.
So I'll let Patrick answer the question.
Patrick, you have any sense of what management at the 5 existing licenses is about what the holdup is? And again, I repeat, apparently SWARC is of the opinion that to license those 5 gives them a somehow competitive advantage over the eventual online licenses and other licenses. Patrick, am I stating that correct?
Yeah, and I think impatience would be the right word, especially for the local people, the local leadership. But I think some of the larger sports books are probably pretty used to it. And, like I said, I've been covering Louisiana, and for the last couple months until they launched on Sunday, again, kind of a similar situation. They only launched 4 of the 20 casinos in retail, and they're just rolling out as the licenses are approved, as Ronnie Johns, the Gaming Control Board chair, signs them. And they've been saying, I mean, they were thrown off by Hurricane Ida at the end of August and delayed, a couple months. And Chair Johns kept telling me 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. So I think major operators are kind of used to the regulatory delays to a point. But I would say impatience is probably the right word.
Yeah. I understand at the end of the meeting today, this was passed along to me by somebody, that Chairman Brandt said something to the effect of, we're as a committee, we're only just now really getting our hands around, the product knowledge of gaming. Am I correct in saying that, Bill?
Well, there was an inference in when he was talking about what they accomplished in closed session. It was that they heard a great deal from these, I think his words were, we got legal advice to the max. And he said, we got a better understanding of gaming from their attorneys in Chicago. And so, yeah, there was that implication from the chairman of the commission that there was an education process going on during the closed session. And, as somebody who covers this, I'm always concerned, I guess is maybe the diplomatic word. I'm always concerned about the fact that the policymakers are, again, to be diplomatic about it, somewhat naive and uninformed about gaming. Whether that gaming is casino gaming or in this case, sports wagering, yeah, there seems to be a sort of breadth of being uninformed that concerns me, because it's important policy decisions, and that folks are not better informed who have to be policymakers. It concerns me.
Well, and it's interesting, Bill, you bring that up about the legislators possibly being uninformed or misinformed. It presupposes that these new businesses that the SWAR committee has been mandated to name, these minority and female-led ownership groups, what makes them think that they will have the savvy? And there is a certain sophistication and a savvy to operating a casino operation. It's not just like running the donut shop down the corner or the pizza parlor or the cleaners. Is that a concern to you at all? That eventually, because I'll bet we could sit here now and say that of the 60 licenses that get, and the 17 online licenses or whatever the math is, that a good chunk of these people will not make it very long.
Is that to me or Patrick?
Patrick, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, they did kind of address that in their September meeting. The law firm did anyway. They're the consulting law firm, and said the Class B licenses aren't businesses that are set up for running sports books by themselves. And that's when the whole talk of potentially tying the online to those 30 kind of started to emerge, and how those businesses might then include the experienced companies that know how to do it.
Okay. Bill,
at least that was what I took from that meeting.
Bill, do we have any sense of who these other potential licensees are?
No, I mean, we know who some of the Class Bs will be. I mean, places like the Timonium Fairgrounds, the bingo halls, places like that. But beyond that, Joe's, sports bar and grill, no. And there could be a number of those that come seemingly out of nowhere to apply for a Class B retail license. I mean, there's that place called Long Shot out in Frederick. There's
right.
a riverboat, down actually closer to Virginia than it is to Maryland. I mean, we know of some of these Class B licensees, but I mean, there are potentially and probably businesses that are going to come out of nowhere and apply for a Class B retail license. As Patrick made the point, the law firm was saying, well, maybe you ought to tether these guys to a more experienced online operator. What's really unclear to me, and I will admit to ignorance on this, they've got potentially 60 online licenses available. Well, there aren't 60 online sports. They don't exist.
Right.
I mean, they don't exist in the known galaxy. So,
Well, was there a thought that like big time restaurants in the state of Maryland or something like that would jump in to take part of that action or something like that? Just don't understand why it was necessary to get that many licenses even out there.
well, there are potentially, geez, I don't know, I've never counted them all up, but there are 40 some potential retail licenses. I mean, there's the 30 Class Bs, we've got a handful of Class As. I haven't put a sharp pencil to exactly how many that works out to, but it's a bundle. And the note talk about 60 online licenses. I think anybody, like, I don't mean to speak for Patrick, but I think anybody who's looked at this at all seriously knows that that was a ludicrous number.
Yeah.
I mean, that basically was a number that said infinity, because there just aren't that many online operators. And if you tried to pair up every Class B licensee with somebody with more experience, like PointsBet's already married to the Riverboat, as a for instance.
Right.
So I'll use them as an example because we know where they stand. I mean, to find a PointsBet to go along with every Class B licensee, I don't know how you do that, frankly.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. Do we know yet, Bill, with the Orioles and the Ravens, will they eventually have the ability to bet at their games or at their stadiums?
Well, I mean, my understanding of it, and Patrick, correct me if you have a different understanding, is, right now, for instance, the NFL is not going to let you put the sports book in the stadium.
In the stadium.
Like the Arizona Cardinal sports book that we all hear so much about is not going to be, on the 30-yard line. It's going to be adjacent to, the
It'll
stadium.
be in the blue. Will it be in the blue tent? Will it be in the blue tent?
I don't know. There might be a pedestrian tunnel that goes in on the sports book in the stadium. I don't know logistics out there in Glendale, but I mean, that's a very interesting question. And I don't mean to open up another can of worms, but I'm sure Patrick's aware of this. I mean, just today, the National Football League signed a deal with Aristocrat, a slot machine maker, to make an NFL branded slot machine. And as people wrote about this speculatively, they're imagining slot machines inside NFL branded slot machines inside NFL stadiums. Now, one may say, "Oh no, that's from outer space," but there's nothing from outer space anymore.
Not anymore. The NFL's quickly changing their tune on all things gaming, it seems like.
So you win the jackpot when the shields come up,
Or Roger Goodell comes up. Three Roger Goodells. All kidding aside, this is pretty serious business because we just got word 2 weeks ago, the same day that the SWART committee canceled their last meeting, that New Jersey had announced that in a month's time, they had taken in $1 billion. This is not profit to the state of New Jersey, but they had $1 billion of sports wagering in a month's time. Bill, has this gone kind of bonkers elsewhere? I mean, is it defying belief how well it's doing in certain places?
Well, again, I'll let Patrick chime in. I mean, Jersey has generally been considered the gold standard.
Yeah.
For online sports wagering operations, and they do enjoy, right for the moment, an extra boost from New York traffic, bridge and tunnel traffic. But this is the one thing I want to say. Now, and maybe I'm as guilty of it as anybody, but we throw out that $1 billion number, and it's a nice round number. We're the column saying exactly that. However, when you look closely at that $1 billion number, I'll cut to the chase. That amounted to $10 million that month in taxes. That's it. I mean, Maryland Live, our casino, just that one casino, they come up with more money than that in a single month, just that one casino. in taxes to the state. So you're right. I mean, this has been, hugely popular in the United States. Probably will get more popular. But I caution people to not become overly exuberant about some of the numbers. Patrick,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Patrick, you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, it seems, well, one, the numbers do keep climbing in terms of overall handle. I mean,
Yep.
Everybody thought as it was legalizing everywhere else that Nevada would kind of stabilize or start to fall, and it just broke its record handle by $100 million. So that's not slowing down. That's with Arizona starting up and apparently being a huge market, though we haven't seen those final numbers yet from their first month. So that, I mean, yes, it's going crazy, but it's certainly, people do tend to overestimate the tax revenue that the states can get,
Right.
or just get really overly excited about that small amount of that $10 million.
Right. But it is quite amazing that the public has the appetite for those kind of dollars, forgetting what the state actually gets out of it. Amazing the amount of dollars are being wagered legally around this country now. I guess it shouldn't be that surprising because we've known for years how much money's been wagered illegally, so it shouldn't. Guys, I really appreciate it. In wrapping up, Patrick, I'll start with you. You think these 5 licensees, the brick and mortars that have the licenses already, you think November 18th they'll get the go ahead? And if so, when do we actually make our first wagers at those facilities?
I don't want to put a date on that because I don't know if November 18th truly is the date that they approve it. I just kind of took that from, it sounded like that's when they want to do it. And then after
let's say that date does work out, that they approve the 5 existing licenses. How long does it take for them to flick the switch and start taking wagering? Does it happen in time for the playoffs, the NFL playoffs?
I would hope so. Like again, I'll just run on Louisiana because it happened Friday. They signed, they got the first ones Friday signed, and then the 4 sports books, 2 opened on Sunday, 2 opened on Monday. So if they get the clearance, they can flip a switch, but I don't want to put a date on that.
Well, Maryland, don't underestimate Maryland's ability to slow ball something even beyond that. Bill, do you think if the 18th does in fact become the date, November 18th, that they approve those 5 licenses to Hollywood Casino, Ocean Downs, MGM, Horseshoe, and Live, how soon are they taking actual wagers?
Right, that's a casino by casino situation. I'm fairly confident that Live will be ready to go. And not only does the casino have to be ready to go, but the lottery and gaming's got to go in there, and they got to eyeball the facility, and they have to make sure that you can count the money, that their surveillance is in place. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts that lottery and gaming wants to make sure, that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted before they say, oh yeah, go ahead, start taking bets. And Live, I believe, will be one of the first, if not the first. And the rest of it will be up to the individual casinos as to how fast they want to, get their hammers and saws going and have a place ready. We know Caesars has announced, meaning Horseshoe, has announced that, they're putting one in, and, they got a restaurant that's going to be themed to it. How fast by the NFL playoffs, if they get the green light on
November 18th. Yeah. Hey, I
would think at least the big 3 would be ready to go by the playoffs, maybe all 5 of them.
All right. I've got one more question for you. Bill and I are of an age, not you, Patrick, but Bill and I are of an age where we remember mid-70s when Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle were banned from baseball for being ambassadors at Atlantic City casinos. This is certainly a different generation today. With all the money being wagered now, Bill, has there been any scintilla of increased security by leagues? And is there any chances of this backfiring on sports leagues?
Well, those are two different questions.
Yep.
Heightened integrity is certainly out there. And we actually have seen there are very impressive companies that have been involved in the sports integrity business for a number of years in Europe, and they have already been embedded into the American professional sports leagues. So, that's one of those kind of behind the back, I guess, back of the store
Yep.
sort of operations that we don't see very often, but have been going on. So that's one thing. Backfire is a different silo. And the backfire, if there is to be an issue that backfires on the industry in general, it will be in terms of, frankly, advertising. There's been a lot of talk about that. There's a lot of talk about it at the Global Gaming Expo in Las Vegas, from all people within the gaming industry, being where they are cautioning online gambling operators, watch how much you push this on television, especially.
Right.
As to them, there being a public revulsion about it.
And
So,
oversaturation.
If there's to be a backfire, I think that's the great.
Well, we do understand, not to take this too deep into this tonight, but we do understand that this amount of money that's spent on advertising is player acquisition. It's not going to be sustained forever, that they'll spend at this kind of level. Correct, Patrick?
Yeah. But who knows how long that phase lasts.
All right.
I don't know if the ads have started there, but the ads have been going
right.
for a while in Michigan.
They have been going. Jesse, I love Jesse on the DraftKings ad. All right, guys, again, Patrick Evans has been our guest from Legal Sports Report, our old friend Bill Ordine from gambling.com. Bill, you've got a piece up, but can you tell people how they could get to it about Maryland's situation?
Well, we do have, along with the flagship website, which is gambling.com, we have a number of state websites. I think Patrick's situation's probably similar. We have a number of state websites. And the one that specifically deals with Maryland gaming activity is called marylandbets.com.
Marylandbets.com.
Yeah.
And they can read your story, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and keep up. And Patrick, Legal Sports Report is the website for you guys, legalsportsreport.com.
Yep, legalsportsreport.com, and then there's a whole map of the U.S. and click on Maryland too.
Click on there. Okay.
And you see all of Maryland's stories, but you can also read about all the other states because those are fun, or go to Play Maryland. That's a sister site of ours. So.
All right. I really appreciate you guys sharing your insights tonight, and hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed that we'll be able to bet on some sports games in the state of Maryland pretty soon. All right. For Patrick Evans of Legal Sports Report and Bill Ordine of gambling.com, I'm Stan the Fan Charles, and I'll see you Monday night in Ross Grimsley. And I will have Mike Bordick as our guest. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Bye.